What is up, you freaky folks? My name is Nick, and welcome to my channel, where I cover all things horror, whatever you're watching, I'm making videos about. And I hope you're all having a wonderful Halloween. We're 3 days away from Halloween. I'm declaring it Halloween right now. And if you've been watching my 13 Nights of Halloween videos up until this point, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. I've just been having so much fun talking about movies that I love to watch around Halloween. And for this video, I want to talk about a movie that I think is the most underrated 80s slasher, Alone in the Dark. Dr. Dan Potter moves his family to the country so he can work at a psychiatric hospital known as the Haven, where 4 criminally insane murderers are held. These villains are known as the Men on the Third Floor. After a massive power outage, they escape and plan an attack on Dr. Dan and his family, believing he is responsible for their previous doctor's departure and out for revenge.
When I was a little kid, I was scared to death to be alone in the dark. I always knew that there was something that I couldn't see that wanted to get me. In the closet, or outside the window.
This is one of the lesser known 80s slashers that people don't bring up very often. I first heard of it in an article on Fangoria.com years ago, and I first rented it from Netflix back when their thing was sending people DVDs in the mail. This was actually the most money I have spent on a single DVD because I really love it and wanted to own it. And you know, now it's available for free right here on YouTube. So you don't have to buy it. You can just search Alone in the Dark 1982. It'll come up. Trust me, you'll find it. And this is where I have to say this video will contain spoilers from here on out. So if you haven't seen it, it is a movie that I think is underseen, and I want to champion as many viewings as possible. So go watch it. It's right there. Then come back and finish the video, because I gotta say, I think it needs to be seen. While this movie does play on the old idea of crazy people breaking out of the nut house to kill normies in the suburbs, I do think this has a more mature look at mental health for a movie that came from 1982. Sure, we've come a long way since then, but I would look at this movie as a stepping stone for the slasher subgenre. And now I'm just gonna talk about things I like about this movie. I hope you guys have gotten used to this by now. The film clearly distinguishes the Men on the Third Floor from the other patients. They're the only violent ones, and they're there because they don't belong in prison. The entire reason Dr. Dan took the position was to work with these minds specifically. When the power goes out, they're the only ones who escape. And when they gather weapons and supplies while the locals are looting, everyone else looks like the unhinged ones. The Men on the Third Floor are calculating and precise. And on the other side, we have Dan's sister Tony, who comes to stay with the family for a visit. She's into music and activism and rocks the best 80s side ponytail on record. But she's also recovering from a nervous breakdown, and she struggles with anxiety. It's nice to see someone openly and honestly dealing with their issues while also being presented as a strong, independent, and personable character. She does turn into a bit of a wreck towards the end, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. While the premise may sound outdated, I love the idea of a blackout kicking off this chain of events and the whole world being turned upside down for a little bit. I can't imagine something like this actually happening today, but what if it did? That would be crazy. I feel like it would be even scarier happening now than in 1982. What makes this movie continually entertaining to me is the plot progression of the screenplay. Scenes really build on one another. The characters are always interacting in interesting ways, whether they're going out to the bar or eating the melting frozen food from the freezer. We even see the mom smoke a joint right there in the kitchen.
You've been smoking pot again. You know it's no good for you.
I will say the movie does detour into basic slasher movie territory, seemingly just to check things off the list and add to the body count. The men kill a bicycle mailman for no reason other than to give us the best line in the movie.
What are you, some kind of asshole?
And there's this whole situation where the daughter ends up home alone so the hot blonde babysitter can be called over just in time for the killers to show up. Because the daughter is sleeping, homegirl decides to have her boyfriend over for some sexcapades. Like, what are you doing? The girl isn't tranquilized, she's gonna wake up. You can't just leave your clothes everywhere. We get the obligatory sex scene with nudity, but it leads to the signature part of this film.
Did you hear that?
What?
I heard a noise.
Come on.
Come on, I said stop it. I heard a noise.
What kind of noise?
The boyfriend is pulled under the bed in a super fast, super creepy way. Then the babysitter is attacked as a killer stabs at her from under the bed. This is such a solid slasher movie set piece to me. I think it's always scary when a villain is underneath a victim, and it plays on the childhood fear of what's under the bed. But the movie really has my heart when it sets up the final act and becomes a full-on home invasion movie. I like serial killer movies and slashers like this because I think actual murderers are genuinely scary, and the idea of one of those types of people trying to break into my home to harm me, yeah, that's ultra terrifying. I know a lot of people don't care for home invasion movies, and there are some really popular ones that don't work for me. I don't care for Funny Games or The Strangers. I just have this thing where I don't like being miserable, but movies like You're Next that have a strong protagonist that fights back against the villains, that I am here for. While the ending isn't super exciting, no one in the family dies, the killers are dispatched with simple stabbings, it does play into exactly what this movie is going for, and that's preying on our most basic fears of what's lurking in the dark and around corners. I don't like that Tony is a cool character just used for plot purposes by the end of the movie, but this does bring us to one of the most random and best scares in horror films, in my opinion. I just have to show it to you. Watch out, this is a jump scare. Was that necessary? Did we really need it? It's just Tony freaking out. But is it creepy and effective? I sure as shit think so. Alone in the Dark is mostly known for its connections to the big three. Donald Pleasance, who played Dr. Loomis in the Halloween movies, plays the head doctor at the Haven. This was one of the early films from New Line Cinema. They would really take off a couple years later with the success of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Director Jack Shoulder would go from this to directing Freddy's Revenge, a sequel that I'm glad people have been reevaluating recently. And of course, the Bleeder Killer dons a hockey mask in a movie that came out the same year Friday the 13th Part 3 came out, where Jason starts wearing a hockey mask. Alone in the Dark may be a simple little slasher movie, but I think it does more than most Halloween ripoffs. We have interesting villains, interesting protagonists, a loaded premise, and effectively entertaining execution. I'm gonna give Alone in the Dark a 3.5 out of 5. I'm really just scraping the surface. I could go on about this movie forever, so let me just leave you with this. The whole subplot with the Bleeder doesn't work for me. Sorry, but Valentine did it better. And I also have to criticize the fact that the black guy dies first twice in this movie. First, they kill Ray when the killers break out of the hospital. Then there's the detective who shows up towards the end, apparently just to get killed. What are you doing, Alone in the Dark? What did you guys think of Alone in the Dark? Thank you so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate your guys' support throughout the month of October. It has been so fun, so crazy, so much has been going on, but I really do truly appreciate the fact that you guys have been spending time over here on my channel. It's just been awesome. Make sure to come back tomorrow for another 13 nights of Halloween video. We are almost done. We are almost at the end. I'm sure you're sick of me. Don't worry, you'll get a break soon. Until then, feel free to follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my channel, and hit that bell, but also enable your notifications. That way you don't miss any creepy content. That's it for this video, but I won't stop you from watching another.